everyone. My name is Alain Pierre. I'm very happy to be with everyone today here on Afrique Today. Then you watching Afrique Today. If you just connect with us today, remember you watch Afrique Today and you can watch us live every day. We are live. And stay tuned, please. And thank you for watching Afrique Today. Again, my name is Alain Pierre and you're watching Afrique Today, the digital TV base in Washington. Today we will talk about the 2020 election. And I have with me two phenomenal people who will help me to discuss about these issues. First, let me introduce my two guests. I have Fatmata Barry. People know her. She's a former and executive. She's a attorney and she do a lot of things to the community. And I have also Amakasa. He's a former and executive director at African Community Together. Welcome both of you. Welcome to Afrique Today.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, today we will discuss about the issues, about the election, about things happen to the community. I will start to Fatmata, like I say, she Anthony and community activist. Fatmata, please, can you introduce yourself to people again? I know you was already a lot of time to Afrique Today. No, please introduce yourself to the viewers who are watching you right now.
Okay, so I'm Fatmata Barry. I am an attorney here in the DC metro area. I practice immigration and special education law and also nonprofit consulting. So I help nonprofits register and do some, advice, give them some consultation. So that's basically what I do. I'm an advocate and activist here in the area. Political activist and advocate, and for this purposes, that's what I do. I have many other hats, but that's what I'm here for today.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have another guest today. Is here with us. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, happy to be back with you, Alain and Fatmata. I'm Mahakasa. I'm the executive director of African Communities Together. African Communities Together, or ACT. We are an NGO, a membership organization for immigrants from Africa and their families. We provide services, principally immigration legal services, not for profit. We also provide community leadership programs, and we advocate on issues at the local, state, and federal government levels that affect our African immigrant communities.
Thank you so much for that. I think today we will talk a little bit about the election. Can you tell us, please, why this election is so important for us, for the community? I will start with you, Ahmad.
Well, I think I could talk a little bit about some of the, particularly when it comes to immigration, some of what we've seen in the African immigrant communities over the last 4 years. A lot of the most important actions that the Trump administration has taken when it comes to immigration and making it more difficult, quite frankly, for immigrants to come to the U.S., to stay in the U.S., to get their legal status. A lot of them have fallen most heavily on the shoulders of our our African immigrant community. So if we think going back to the so-called the Muslim ban, some of the countries that were affected by that were Sudan, Somalia, Libya. They were African countries. And then fast forward to this year when we saw what some people are calling the African ban. And some of the largest African countries were touched by that African ban, including Nigeria, most of all, but also Eritrea, Tanzania, Sudan again, either making it more difficult for people to come or making it impossible for people to participate in the diversity visa, what we call the green card lottery. And the green card lottery has been one area that really has affected our African immigrant communities. My organization is part of a lawsuit against the Trump administration because they implemented a new requirement that in order to even apply to the green card lottery, you have to have a passport. And we know that in a lot of our African countries, sometimes it's the most difficult to get a passport. And it can be expensive, it can be time consuming. So what happened when they put in this rule? The numbers of people applying for the diversity visa program went down by half, went down by more than half, by 11 million fewer applications in the last lottery than the year before. This was 1 year ago. We're in the next lottery. And where did the biggest decrease happen? It happened in Africa. Biggest decrease happened in Sierra Leone. The previous year, almost 1 million people applied from Sierra Leone. Last year, 77,000. And we saw big decreases in Ghana, in Ethiopia, in Cameroon, and a lot of other countries as well. So, and it's not been one thing. It's been one thing stacked on top of another, slowing down, making it harder for people to get citizenship, to bring their families, to claim asylum. So when it comes to immigration, especially, it's been one thing after another, and this election will be in part a referendum about how the American people, including African immigrants and the diaspora, feel about this administration's immigration agenda.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for what also you're doing for the community. Fatmata, I will come to you because I know you work with immigrant community. What is the impact on the African immigrant community that this election has?
Well, I will pick up from where Amaha was talking about. So, as we speak, there are those who have gone for interviews, have followed the rules according to what we say people are supposed to do, and they've been detained. So even though they've gone through the legal process, they've done what they're supposed to do, they are detained, they are held. People who go to report, they've been detained, they've been held. And we've had to fight to advocate for these people, even though they're following the rules according to what they say they're supposed to do. So we also know many small business owners here in the DMV who have been detained. So at the end of the day, these are business owners, these are employers, and now the people they're employing no longer have jobs. The revenue that's coming into the county from these people no longer exists. And we know of these people. And those are the impacts of policies that are put in place that target Black and brown communities. So I can say that this administration, their focus has been on Black and brown communities. So when you look at the list of countries who have had flags placed on them, a lot of them are African countries. Say for instance, when they talk about student visa overstay, and they put a limit or ban countries that can have student visas for 4 years or for the entire time they're here to get education. Now they have proposals to end that, where you have to reapply every 2 years. And it's expensive. And who does that? Who are they targeting? Many African countries. Mind you, African countries don't get as many student visas as other nations in numbers, right? We're much lower. So a country like, I think, Burundi or something like that, there were maybe 2 or 4 that overstayed. But because they're using percentages, like 10%, so they're targeting the countries, even though maybe Asia had maybe over 1,000 overstay. But because there's so many of them, the percentage of overstay is smaller, so they get to still apply and get student visas. And countries from Europe. But the African countries are the most that they have on this list. And you have to wonder why. You have to wonder why. Let's remember that this administration, when Trump decided to run for office, what he came down those stairs to say about Mexicans being rapists and murderers, his entire campaign was on ending immigration in this country. And a lot of it was black and brown people to end their immigration into the United States of America. And the reality is, when he was asked about immigration, he said he had no problems with immigration, but why can't they not come from Norway? And none of us come from Norway, right? We don't come from Norway. We are not Norwegian. We're not Nordic people. We're black and brown people. And so everything about this administration tells you that their purpose for being is to get rid of legal immigration. They may tell you it's illegal immigration, but they don't want legal immigration, at least not from black and brown countries. Because if they did, the policies they have, like the new form, the I-944, so that's in addition to the I-864 to prove that you can, in fact, take care of yourself. It's been they've gone to court in reference to that, and they had been knocked down, but then it was reversed. So Amaha can probably talk more about the court cases that have gone in, because ACT has been one of those organizations that's suing the administration. My job is to make people understand that as you go to that ballot box to put your ballot in, I know we tend to say that the Republican Party, see, I don't represent any organization, so I can be partisan. The Republican Party supposedly represents the values of family and whatnot. But we know that if you value family, you will not separate children from their parents. If you value family, you will not put policies in place that will prevent me from bringing my sister over. If you value family, you will not put in policies that would limit my ability to bring my children over here to this country. You will, if you value family, you will not limit the opportunity for family reunification. And for most African families, for most African countries, that is how we come in here, through family. But they're putting limitations on so much of this that it's making it very, very much harder. And you will not raise application fees by 80%. An application that was $700 and something, you're making over $1,000. So imagine, you can barely pay your rent, now you have to pay this fee and pay your attorney fees. So you're not making it easier or simpler. You're adding more forms, you're redoing the forms and adding more pages, and you are raising the fees. That's not making it simpler for people to, quote unquote, legally become Americans or bring their families to be reunited. So there's a lot of things people need to look at. the immigration policies don't only affect people bringing their families over, but like I said earlier, it also affects the economic standing of the African immigrant community in this country. Because if you cannot work to take care of your family because of the restrictions they have, then you are going to be on the level closer to being in poverty. And that's just a reality. And if you cannot stay and build your business, then there's no revenue coming into your community. So, and as we know, immigrants in this country, especially black immigrants and black people in general, health care is a major issue. And we don't have the same access to health care as other communities do. And you must consider that when you go to the ballot box, we only have a few more days, and the people you have in office determine your economic, your educational, your health, and your housing, and everything else in between. So I don't want people to keep saying I don't do politics, because I always say, and people have said, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. So pay attention. Realize that this is a most critical election, because we have somebody right now who does not care whether you live or die. We have somebody right now who does not care whether you're here or deported or removed from this country, or whether your family is here or removed. We have children right now. They may not be African per se, but I'm sure there's some in there who do not know whether they will ever see their parents again. 545 children at the border. That is heartless. And when this man was asked during the last debate about it, what did he say? He said good. When Biden asked him, about kids not being able to see their parents again, he said, good. Who does that? And shrugged his shoulder. That's not somebody you want to continue to run this country.
Thank you so much, Fatmata, for that. And I just want to remind everybody that Fatmata, she's a lawyer. If you have any immigration issues, contact her, please. I will jump a little bit to another question. What is how have we fared during the last 4 years under the Trump administration? I don't know who will answer this question. Maybe anyone can answer this question.
Amaha. Let's Amaha do it.
Okay, Amaha, let's go.
So we've spoken a little, Fatmata and I both have spoken a little bit about some of the big issues when it comes to immigration. But I think it's worth remembering that it's not just immigration that's on the ballot this year, and what are some of the other issues as African immigrant communities that are going to impact us the most. Well, obviously, the thing that's impacting all of us in the U.S. at the moment the most is the COVID epidemic. We have really seen our lives turned upside down in the last year in a way that I think many of us didn't think was possible. The number of people who've died in the past year is staggering. It's over 225,000. And right now, the rate of deaths it's gone up and down, but at days it's been as high as 1,000 people per day. Not cases, but deaths. And I think when we stack that up to some of the pandemics that we've lived with on the African continent, like Ebola or some of these things, it actually is it's a bigger crisis, I think, for the U.S. and really for the whole world. And then of course, and we've seen it over the past 4 years, well, not over the past 4 years, but really this year, since especially March of this year, our African immigrant communities have been in the center of the pandemic. We have mourned a lot of our community leaders. There have been a lot of moments of silence and prayers for people that we have said goodbye to from our communities who have died during the epidemic. Some very well-beloved community leaders. But through it all, most of our community was working. A lot of our people are essential workers, whether that's in a hospital, whether it's driving other essential workers to work in Uber and Lyft, whether it's preparing food or groceries. We've seen a lot of our community affected that way. And then we've seen a lot of our community affected economically by the closure of businesses. We have people who've lost jobs or who've lost their businesses as a result of the COVID recession. And it's far from over, right? We're not through the pandemic even, never mind the economic impact of that. So things like, are we going to continue the rent eviction moratorium that we've had in some states, like Virginia, for example, and that in many cases is the only reason that people have been able to stay in their homes? Is that going to continue, or is that going to get cut off? The Senate just closed, and they closed without doing another COVID relief package. People were saying, are we going to have another stimulus bill for $1,200 or what have you before the end of the year? Are we going to expand unemployment before some of those things run out? And right now the answer looks like no. So it's an important reminder that this election is not just the presidency, although that one grabs a lot of the headlines. Congress is in play. Both the House and the Senate. It's extremely competitive, and so things like stimulus, COVID relief, expanded unemployment, and healthcare, right? People's ability to access healthcare for treatment. Some people with COVID are going to have lifelong complications. And if they lose coverage because of pre-existing conditions, that is going to be a major issue. So I think what our communities have gone through over the past 4 years, we touched on some of it, but really the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic of the last year, the COVID recession, is not only has it been one of the biggest issues we've lived with, but it's going to continue to be, no matter who gets elected.
Thank you. Yes, Fatmata.
And I want people to keep in mind that the fact that we don't have a stimulus and they didn't have the time to meet to discuss a stimulus, but the Senate had a time to meet, special weekends to confirm someone to the Supreme Court as the election is happening, should tell you something. Should send a clear message that you, as the public, and your economic stability and your health does not matter to this current Senate. So when you go to that ballot box, think about it. Think about who decided that they will rather meet on weekends that they would normally do not meet for you and me, but they will meet to confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, and at night confirm her, but they cannot take the time to meet to put together a stimulus package that can help us. Now they're in recess until after the election. So when you are considering what you're going to do, whether you're going to go to the ballot or you think you may not need to, consider that fact. Do you really want people in there who don't prioritize you as the voter, as a member of the community in this country? Or do you want to have a change? The possibility of having people who actually will put you first. Think about that. And I was so glad that Amaha came, brought that up, because it really the fact that we are where we are, and the market, granted, most of us are not part of the market, but if the market dropping, because remember, during this pandemic, the market wasn't crashing, right? It was still going up. So they weren't that concerned. But at the end of the day, if the people who are supposed to buy the goods don't have the money, guess what happens? These businesses don't get anything back. And that's the effect it's having on the market, because the Senate has gone home. So we have to look at the entire ballot. So look at your Senate seats. Look at who spent weekends and nights to get this woman into the Supreme Court, but could not bring themselves to put together a package that can help you feed your family, put food on the table, pay your rent. Because those protections are going away, and there's nothing coming out until, at a minimum, after the election. And God only knows what's going to happen after that happens. So think about it as you cast your ballots, as you put forth your voice, because that's what your ballot is. It's your voice in determining who represents you in Congress.
Thank you so much, Fatmata, and thank you everyone who watching Afrique Today. For those who just turning now, you are watching Afrique Today, the digital TV based in US, and you can watch us on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using Afrique Today app. Afrique Today is available now on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick. Please download Afrique Today app. Of course, we will take a little bit break, and when we will come back, we will keep talking about the 2020 presidential election in USA. We'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
Promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Elite Soccer Youth Development Academy invites you to the 9th Annual ESYDA Award Banquet 2020. Saturday, November 7th from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. The banquet will be structured differently from previous years, ensuring everyone's safety. Please save this date, Saturday, November 7th from 10 until 1. For more information, go to esYDA.org. Media partner, Afrique Today TV. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Do you need food? Call 311 and ask for the Food Access Call Center. The call center can connect you with resources such as SNAP to help you pay for groceries. You may also receive food and prepared meals from organizations throughout the county. Call center staff help community members in English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and other languages. Visit our website, www.montgomerycountymd.gov/COVID-19-food for the latest food resources. Again, call 311 to be connected to the Food Access Call Center.
Hello and welcome back to Afrique Today. My name is Alain Pierre, and I have here 2 amazing guests, Amakasa and Fatmata Berry, and we're talking about the 2020 election. Okay, I have a question. Locally, do you have any opinion on the ballot question, Fatmata?
The one I can go into that I can is the setup of the county council. So that one I definitely have an opinion on, and I'm supporting the 11 seats because this is the thing. The county has grown a lot. I mean, we are bigger than some states in population. Okay, we're over 1 million people, so it has grown a lot. So representation needs to grow with that. And if you have 11 seats, which maintains the 5 at-large seats, I'm sorry, the 4, is it 4? Yeah, 4 at-large seats. Then what happens is you get to have more representation, because you not only have your district rep, but you also have a large person you can go to with your issues. So if for whatever reason, your district rep may not necessarily be engaged with your issues, you still have one other person you can go to who knows that they will need your vote for them to remain in office. But imagine if all you have is one representative, because that's what the other side is saying, that we should only have 9 districts, which means each district only has one representative. So right now, the way it's set up, we have 5 districts and 4 at large. So if you're not happy with what your district representative is saying or doing or whatever, then you can then go to one of the at-large people, because they still need your vote. So that's what politics is about, right? So if for whatever reason you're not happy with your district representative, you still have somebody else who's representing you, and you get to vote for 2 people. You get to vote for more than just one. Not 2, I'm sorry, because there's a large. So you get to vote for the 4 plus yours. District representative. But the way the other people want it, with the 9, you only get to vote for one person. That's it, one person. And that means only one person is answerable to you. Think about it. Only one person is answerable to you. But if there are 5 people who are answerable to you, can you imagine how many people you could go to with your issue? If one doesn't answer you, you have 4 other people you can go to. So that's why I'm going for that, because that means that we will add 2 more districts, so which would then make it less people within a district, which would help more people be represented within the council. So I'm going with 11 district. I think it's question C. Going with the 11 county council members. The other ballot questions, I'm not getting into just yet.
Okay, yes, I remember we have a lot of questions. We have question A, question B. And remember, Fatmata, she knows what she's talking about, because she was a candidate for, I think, for state delegate. Yes, you know what you're talking about. Okay, we will keep going about this election. What can people do to make a difference on this election, knowing that we are only a few days before the election?
Well, I can jump in. So I think there's a couple things. I mean, one, it's important to remember that a lot of people in our community can't vote, right? We have a lot of our African immigrant community. They have their green card, but they don't have their citizenship, or they've got temporary status, or they have no papers at all. There are a lot of people who would like to have a voice and a vote in this election, but legally they don't have one. And not just here in the U.S., but think about how many people around the world including back in Africa, are affected by the result of the U.S. election. Literally billions of people are affected. So one thing that I think it's important to remember in these last few days before the election is when you vote, you're not just voting for yourself. You're voting for your family. You're voting for your community. And you're voting for your homeland, and and all the people who are in your bigger kin, your kinship. So take that responsibility and that opportunity seriously. A second thing that you can do is, if you have the right to vote, check your registration. Make sure that you have the information. Go online. I moved recently. I moved apartments, and I remembered just in time that I had to update my voter registration if I wanted to be able to vote this year. So if you have double check that to make sure that your polling place hasn't changed because of COVID-19. Where are you supposed to cast your vote? When can you cast your vote? And then remember you're voting for others. Find out your voting information, and then 3, make a plan to vote. The thing that will make the difference about whether you end up voting or not is whether you have a specific plan. I'm going to go on this day at this time. I'm going to leave early from on my way to work and cast my vote then. Whatever your plan is, what will you do if you run into a line when you go to cast your vote? Will you have time to wait if there's a delay? Make a real plan, because a plan will make the difference between you doing it or not. It's like anything in life, right? If you want to go get a better job or go back to school or have a family, you have to make a plan. And so that's a third thing that you can do. And then the last thing I would say is talk to your friends, your family, your community, your associations, your group chats, and tell people the same. Don't just encourage them to vote, although that's good. It's good to send the messages about the importance of voting to that WhatsApp group that you're part of, or to the, on your Facebook page. Those are good. It's good to encourage people. It's good to see, yes, people who can vote are voting. But what's more important and what has more effect is for you to pick up the phone and text or call your friends or your family, particularly if they live in what are called these swing states or battleground states, and encourage them to vote. This election, a lot of it is going to be decided in states like North Carolina. I know we have a lot of our African communities there in North Carolina. Georgia, another big state, with what's going to decide. Pennsylvania, our African community, big presence in places like Philadelphia, very important. Michigan, Arizona, those countries, even Maine. I know we have some, like Somali and other communities up there, and Ghanaian communities up there in Maine. The whole country is watching those states. And sometimes if you can just reach out to a handful of friends and family in those states and encourage them to use their voice, to use their vote, that can make a big difference.
Thank you so much for that. In this question, I would like to ask to both of you, and how do we ensure we have a representation? I would like to start with Fatmata.
Okay, so how do you ensure you have representation? You vote.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You vote. Voting gives you representation, and you vote for those who serve your interest, your community's interest, like Amaha said. So I would say, like, I tend to tell the story now a lot, because I think I like to personalize some things. when I came to this country, if I came now, I would have been considered a dreamer. And I did not get my green card until just before I started law school. And I came here when I was 11 years old. That's a long time. That's a very long time. And it was a struggle my family had to go through. My parents had to go through. And being that person that's sort of in between, right? And growing up in the South, in Florida, with that, it was not easy. It wasn't easy. However, just because I had to struggle and my family had to struggle to get this thing done, this piece of paper, this little card, doesn't mean the people coming after me need to go through the same struggles. It doesn't, right? So when you're thinking about voting, when you're thinking about having representation, think about the people coming behind you. Think about the people who came before you to make it simpler and easier for you to even be able to apply for these things, or to be able to be born in this country to gain the benefits of this country. Think about those people who sacrificed, people who died so you can have the right to vote, families who are annihilated, communities that were bombed so you can have the right to vote. So use that voice that was given to you. Use that voice that people sacrificed to give to you, to put your ballot in, and that is your voice. But another thing, if you're somebody who is interested in politics, run for office. That's how you get representation. Run for office. Represent your community, represent your beliefs, represent what you want to see happen. Run for office. And if there's somebody who's running for office that you like, support them. And support them if you cannot vote for them, because as we know, a lot of us cannot vote legally. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can encourage others to vote, you can help others vote. So that's how you can gain representation and proper representation, and stay educated stay educated with the election process. So make sure you're aware of the issues pending. Talk to people to get a clear understanding. Do your research, and make sure that when you are researching, you're researching the issues that are pertinent to you and your community and your family, and at the end of the day can benefit you and yours, because it's very important. And that's how you can, part of how you can get representation. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm sure Amaha has a whole bunch of things you can add.
Yes, Amaha, what you can add on that?
Well, I think Fatmata shared a lot of important things about who represents us, right? And not just in the White House, but in Congress, at the State House, at our local city hall. And I think that's critical, right? Getting more people who come from our community, who share our experiences, who know our struggles and our needs and issues. That's really where it begins. And Montgomery County and Maryland, the DMV has really led the way on a lot of breakthroughs in terms of our community's representation. But I think the other half that's just as important as who represents us is making sure that our issues are on the agenda. I will give an example, again, going back to the issue of immigration. So I think if you talk to any elected federal official, right, and you talk to them about immigration, they will say dreamers. They'll say the dream, DACA, we got to save dream, we got to find a way to make the dreamers who came here as kids, have permanent status or a solution, a lasting solution. Up before Trump, we didn't hear the same thing about our community members who had temporary protected status, even though they were here, because things were unsafe. for them to return to their country of origin, whether that's Liberia or Sudan or Somalia. And it's really only over the last 3 or 4 years, as the TPS countries have been kind of facing the loss of status, deportation, that the community has really made noise at the national level and said, we don't want just temporary status year after year after year. We really need a permanent solution. And so as a result of that, we've seen things like the HEROES Act include extension of status for Dreamers. We've seen things like the Dream and Promise Act, which passed in the House, would provide permanent status for TPS holders. So that's a recent shift, and we still have a long way to go. When you look at an issue like the diversity visa, we were talking about how millions of people lost out on the opportunity to even apply to that program. We've had challenges with the Republicans trying to get rid of it, but frankly, we've had challenges with the Democrats wanting to trade it away for higher priorities. And we've had to hold them accountable, and in particular, the Congressional Black Caucus had been champions on drawing the line and saying, no, we're not going to trade away diversity visa. It's important to countries like Ethiopia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, that are some of the biggest countries applying to this program. So once we elect those people, like Fatimata is saying, once they're in office, we need to make sure that they hear from us. We need to show up in their district offices. We need to show up, if they're in Congress, we need to show up at their congressional office where, if you're in the DMV, you're fortunate because you're close to both. And we need to send them emails, send them calls, have them hear consistently so that when someone says TPS or diversity visa or better quality jobs or housing or access to healthcare, as they affect our specific communities, they can say, yes, I've heard about that issue already. I've been hearing about it from within my district. So we have to organize and make our voices heard. And if our leaders aren't leading, then it's up to our communities to lead them and to say, this is what we need. This is how we need you to represent us.
So, Alan, real quick, I wanted Amaha. I wanted Amaha to, if you can, to talk about the Liberian Refugee program, the fairness program, and where it stands, just to kind of give people an idea of the importance of having the right people in the right position to make decisions on things like this Liberian Refugee Fairness Act, and whether it works, and the fact that it ends in December. But if you can go into how you guys were able to get it to begin with, and the struggles to have it implemented up to this point, and trying to get it extended.
Sure. It's a really important program, what Fatmata is referring to. So the Liberian Refugee and Immigration Fairness Program, or LRIF, is a program, a law that was passed a little under a year ago, almost a year ago, at the end of 2019. And this law gives a pathway to getting citizenship to an estimated 10,000 Liberians here in the U.S. Who don't have their papers. A lot of whom had things like TPS, temporary protected status, or DED, deferred enforced departure. Basically, a lot of Liberians, as long as they've been here, as long as they fall under one of these, fall within the requirements of the law, can apply to get their status. And it was something that passed both houses of Congress and was signed into law by President Trump even though in many ways this has been a very anti-immigrant Congress and very anti-immigrant administration. How did it happen? Well, it represents really, a lot of work over a long time by local activists. We have very active Liberian community in the DMV, the Liberian community in the DMV is very active and very well organized, but also nationally. And a lot of people have been advocating for decades. The political leadership really came from Senator Jack Reed in Rhode Island, although there was great support from other senators like Senator Van Hollen and Senator Tina Smith in Minnesota. But it really came down to, one, we sued the government to stop them from cutting off status for several thousand people who had deferred enforced departure. It's another program like TPS. And that bought us the time to advocate for this law. And then, we had actually both Democratic and Republican members of the Senate who supported passing this bill because they understood that there was no way that Liberia was going to be prepared to, to absorb thousands of deportees, and that people who had been living in the U.S. for decades deserved a shot at permanent status. So we hope that that's just a down payment. We know that there are millions more who need permanent status, but it was a very important expansion of citizenship. The problem is that unfortunately this administration has been sabotaging LRIF on the back end. They've been slowing down they haven't been publicizing it. They've been slowing down the application. So out of this 10,000, only less than 2,000 people have applied, and very few people have gotten their papers. Now, we want people to apply anyway because at the end of December, the window closes, and this once-in-a-lifetime possibility to get papers is going to be gone. A lot of our people missed the last big legalization opportunities back in the Reagan administration, and even if they were here, they didn't apply because they didn't know about it or they didn't trust it. So if you have Liberian community members, Liberian family who don't have their papers, they should definitely consult with a good, reliable immigration attorney, somebody like Fatmata or a nonprofit provider. My organization provides immigration legal services as well, pro bono in Montgomery County, thanks to Montgomery County funding. And we're also in other places like New York and the district, we're able to provide some services. So go to somebody reliable, trustworthy. We have some great community attorneys, and find out, do you qualify for this Liberian refugee and immigration fairness? Meanwhile, we are pushing to extend it. We're saying, look, COVID happened, everything shut down, people couldn't apply, people couldn't get fingerprinted, people couldn't, do the basic things they need to do to apply for this program. So we should extend it by one more year. And we're advocating with the Congress, we're advocating with the White House. If there's a new election, if there's a new White House and changes in Congress, we're going to advocate next year to continue the program and extend the program. But don't count on that. Get your application in, and if you can.
Thank you so much for that. And we are already on the end on this show. Now, before I let you go, I know a lot of our community don't like to vote, and I want you to give a little bit to encourage our community to go and vote. What is your last remark you can say on this today's show? I will start with you, Maha.
Great. So I would say, look, I think a lot, it's understandable. A lot of our community members think, we're here, as Africans, what we want to do is we want to work hard, take care of our family, pray, and hopefully we'll be able to get through, and we'll just mind our own business. Maybe, and sometimes we pay more attention to what's going on back home than here. We feel like we're guests. But the fact is, this is where we are now. This is where we live. This is where we work. This is where we have to deal with the legal system, including the immigration legal system, and people who are raising children, raising families. This is the only place they've ever known as home. So we have to care, even if all we want to do is be, left alone to earn a living and take care of our family. That can't happen. If people are arrested and detained or deported, or if their businesses or their job is lost because of COVID or a recession. So we don't have a choice to not pay attention to the forces that shape our lives. We can either choose to be affected by them, or we can choose to affect them. And so what we're saying is choose your destiny, help shape your destiny, and one way that you can do that while we still have the freedom to do it is to vote.
Thank you. Fatmata, in addition on that question, if you can add also what you can say to people who are scaring about the deportation, because we know we have a lot of deportation. Your last remark, if you can add just the deportation part, please.
Okay. So I know people are worried, they're scared. I cannot tell people not to be worried and scared, right? Because that is their lived experience. But like Amaha said earlier, speak to an attorney, speak to an organization like ACT to get feedback, your status, options that you may have to help. And like Amaha said, putting in and voting the right people in could change everything. And you have organizations like his who are advocating on a regular basis, going to Congress, going to the White House, talking to people who make decisions on a regular basis.
Adrian,
so I would suggest that you take the time to discuss with people who are in the know and can maybe give you advice as to your next steps, and hopefully help calm you down as far as worrying about deportation or removal. But vote. If you know people who can vote, get them to go vote and make that happen. And it's, especially in the county, it's easy.
Thank you so much, both of you. I just want to remind everyone who was watching us today, I had two amazing guests, Fatmata Berry, she's an attorney, and she also a community activist. I used to have also Amaha Kassa, he's a founder and executive director at African Communities Together. Thank you both of you for your time and for what you are doing for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Always a
having
pleasure.
us. Great to see you, Amaha.
Great to see you as well, sis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for everyone who was watching Afrique Today. It was a pleasure to host this show today, the African Diaspora Grassrooting. It was 3 months Afrique Today cover this 2020 election, and we will keep working closely with our community. My name is Alain Pierre. See you next time.
nous disons stop à la vente de nos terres. Jamais, ne cédons pas aux chantages et belles paroles. L'héritage que nos ancêtres nous ont légué, c'est pas l'argent, les voitures et maisons, pour assurer la survie de nos familles. C'est la forêt et la terre. Ici est bon, et les baillons se maillent. Ici bonne nuit est venue, et les baillons se maillent. Et ma coupe se m'attend, ma bon maillon correct. Na de café na bito colonné, o morro como sangue, olhar. Toya na ka, o bonolo, eu sou me sei, indele, abonisa, sakonane. Non à la vente, c'était Élevons nos voix, chantons sur tous les toits, pour que demain soit plus clair. Si t'entends ma voix, la voix des sans-voix, ce qu'on a de plus cher, ce sont nos terres.
Tout le temps et tout le peuple une partie du temps, mais on ne peut tromper tout le peuple tout le temps. Oui au développement, non à l'exode rural.
Diaspora Banen, pièce traditionnelle élue, fils et filles, que chacun apporte sa pierre à l'édifice. Nous-mêmes nous dans mon pays. Non à la vente, c'était Banen.
Peuple Banen, tous nous sommes interpellés, soyons unis. Connais les petits me partenaires, nous partons motif sur ce niveau alors, nous ne les voyons moi.
Nous remercions le collectif des artistes bananiers et son président, monsieur et combiné Vincent Olivier, pour sa lutte acharnée pour le réveil de la culture banane.